Hey everyone, welcome to our Activate Grants 101, which is our virtual overview of the Activate grants, their process, and some tips and tricks for the application. So my name is Katie Moore, and I am the Activation Manager for Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. I've been in this role almost 2 years, and I primarily oversee the Activate grant program, and then I assist with World of Winter, Return to the River, and other downtown placemaking initiatives. So DGRI is a publicly funded nonprofit that partners with the City of Grand Rapids on placemaking initiatives in improving downtown Grand Rapids and making it a destination and fun place to be. So these Activate grants really contribute to that. The funding is primarily for temporary public activations that happen in downtown Grand Rapids. And I'll get to the location information in a few slides. But they're up to $10,000. And so you can do some pretty cool things with that. But we also understand that, for a larger, more sustainable project, like let's say the Calder, more funding is required. So these are lighter, faster, not necessarily as durable and long-term as some larger things. But on that note, if you do have a more ambitious project, this funding can be combined with other funding. And we do encourage you to really maximize and try and find in-kind donations or fundraise through other means as well, if that's something that you would like to do. We run this opportunity twice a year. So right now we're in our spring, summer, and we consider this, if you get funding, to complete the project prior to ArtPrize, so September. And then we'll run a second call for our winter, World of Winter Activate grants towards the end of summer, early fall. And there's actually more opportunity for funding with those, although it does come with the challenges, of course, working outside in the winter. So Activate grants can fund really anything that's creative. So we're talking art, design, events, programming, performance, murals, site-specific installation, sculpture, vinyl, lighting, etc. Sky's really the limit. And this is why we run this as a proposal-based application, because we have no idea what creative things people can come up with, and we don't want to limit anyone. One of the primary things to keep in mind is that any activations need to be free and open to the public. These are for everyone, and we want people to be able to experience them as they come downtown. So if you have specific questions about if your idea or project is eligible, I'm happy to talk through that with you. And we also want to make sure that our activations are appropriate for all audiences. So as a rule, no religion or politics, because we are a publicly funded organization. There are other opportunities through ArtPrize or other grant programs that do allow for more of that. So that might be something to check out if your project doesn't fit that requirement. If you are thinking about hosting or proposing an event, you do need to adhere to the requirements of the Office of Special Events, also known as the OSE. They have a wonderful resource on their website called the Planning and Resource Guide. It really walks through everything you need to think about when hosting an event in public space. And it would be helpful if you're planning out a budget as well, because it has every detail. We also have a free event management program that happens twice a year. If you are funded for an event through the Activate Grant program, it is mandatory that you attend these, but it's also a great opportunity if you're just interested in learning more. So that'll happen in the evenings on April 15th and 17th. And you can stay tuned for our social media for upcoming details about that. But it's hosted by someone who regularly hosts events downtown and is extremely knowledgeable of the process. We also have a seasonal event and programming grant that is outside of the Activate grant. More information about that can be found on the DGRI website. And these are for events that happen in the off season. So not necessarily right now, but if you're interested in hosting an event in October to April, this is a great opportunity to find some funding for that as well. How I like to advise people to start is think about where the project is going to be. So as I mentioned, DGRI has a district. So any Activate grant must take place in our district, which is pictured here on the screen. With permission of the property owner, anything kind of goes in this area. The first step is to determine if the location you're looking at is on public or private property, because that changes the process. So the easiest way to do that is to use the Kent County GIS. And that is a parcel mapper that shows, who owns what. And so if it's a City of Grand Rapids, that's going to be public, and then anyone else. And so if you're also looking to contact a property owner to figure out if they'd be interested in hosting the work, that's the way to start that process. For mural specific, historic buildings and MDOT, which would be like infrastructure, underpasses, retaining walls, do require more extensive review process that can take some time. So it's not impossible, but just something to keep in mind when you think about a timeline. If your installation does end up being on public property, which ends up most of the time for these Activate grants, you think any of the parks downtown especially, your proposal has to go before the City of Grand Rapids Arts Advisory Council. They meet once a month, and it's a group of arts professionals and city staff that reviews your proposal and makes sure that it's safe and durable and able to withstand the public, and also that it's appropriate for all audiences, as I mentioned before. So I will assist you with that because it's something that we want you to learn how to do. And so if you have a project after this, you can be confident and know the process and attend on your own. So materials is another question we ask in the application. And I think it's really important, especially for public engagements. So Michigan weather, as we know, is extremely unpredictable, even in the summer. So you want to make sure that whatever material you're selecting is something that can hold up against wind, rain, snow, and just be prepared and need to adjust potentially for that. And then another big thing to consider is public engagement. That can look like a lot of different things. How we think people interact with art and installations is not always what we want that to be. So it needs to be sturdy enough and to think through, what's going to be safe and not fall over or be pokey. So yeah, sharp edges, trip hazards, just things to think about to keep people generally safe when experiencing your project. And I encourage you to be really creative. There's so many new materials out there that are cost effective and strong and durable, and doing the research and learning, even just walking through Home Depot or Lowe's and seeing what's out there is fun and also necessary for some of these. And then be open to your design changing, go with the process, when you're vetting material. It just happens, and we accept that. And we understand that after you get the grant, if you do need to modify some things, that's totally okay. We'll work with you on that, and we just need to be in communication about it. Considering weight and lighting are also two things. I'll show an example of what I think is some successful lighting in projects here in a little bit. And then electricity. If you do need electricity, I highly recommend going and making sure there's an outlet that works, that's nearby and accessible to your piece. Budget. This is, of course, unique to every project in person. And for the application proposal, it can be pretty high level, but I do encourage you to make sure it's realistic. And that goes kind of back to the material slide. If you find that you want to use steel, maybe just make sure that the steel is within the budget. But keep it high level. Don't forget to pay yourself, of course. And also think through what it's going to take to get your piece, if it's a sculptural element, into the space. So you might need to rent some equipment to get it off of a truck, and you may have to rent a U-Haul to get it there. And then how you're installing it, it's always helpful to think through that. What kind of tools do you need? Will you need to hire someone to help you? Good things to keep in mind. Safety, we think cord covers, any other material you might need to make sure the piece is safe for all. And then contingency and maintenance. Stuff does happen, especially when we talk about public interaction and weather. So making sure you're setting a little money aside to be able to fix the piece or make improvements as time goes on and stuff happens. So I wanted to show some examples of successful past projects that we funded through the Activate program and why we thought they were successful. So Hipster Disco is an event that takes place in Grand Rapids, generally inside. And so they proposed for World of Winter last year to have the event outside. which was a big departure from what they normally do, but it turned out amazing. So they proposed for this alley and went through all the proper permissions, had to talk to all the business owners. It was definitely a lift, but they got it done. And then they transformed the space with all these lighting and disco ball elements. And it was such a great way to highlight an unused space, have a really one-of-a-kind experience. It ended up being really magical for everyone who attended. Carnivale by Mandy Cano Villalobos is another great example. Mandy had originally proposed this piece to be up against a wall and was working on that, and then the location fell through, so she had to pivot and came across DeVos Place and proposed to have it in the archway there, and it became a much more successful piece because of the location change, so you could walk through it. And this is an example of really simplistic lighting. The piece looks beautiful during the day, it's bright and vibrant, and then just simple string lighting around the inside completely transforms the piece at night. And it's beautiful and just simplistic. Cypress Forest is a great example of what you can do with kind of light and acrylic materials. So Craig identified a flower bed that was really underutilized at the front of the Blue Bridge and made these great sculptures. They're just metal welded down, and then with this kind of not cheap, but cost-effective acrylic material, and transformed it to make these beautiful, vibrant pieces that also look beautiful at night as well. And he did get some feedback when he proposed to the Arts Advisory Council that they thought that the sculpture should be anchored more efficiently than he had proposed. And so he went back and made those adjustments, and it was extremely successful work. An example of a mural, this is Look About You by Maddie Schaefer, and this was completed last summer. This is an example of needing to have a few different locations in mind. Maddie was working on one location. We thought we were going to make it happen, and it fell through. And then they worked really hard to find these business owners and convince them and show them what the mural was going to look like. They had a great mock-up, and get them on board, and they were huge fans, and the location turned out better than we could have expected. Another piece by Craig Merchant that I think is a wonderful example of what you can do, once again, with a cost-effective material is icicle lanterns, and this one is up right now, so you can check it out. It's in 6th Street Park. Craig just used reclaimed fabric and LED lights to make these beautiful lanterns that hang from trees. And he also had some issues with people messing with his pieces in the past. So this was a great solution to put them up above the reach of anyone coming through. And once again, a great day and night experience. Some other things to keep in mind, some locations do require insurance, and some artists feel more comfortable with that. So when you're budgeting or thinking through things, understanding, if you want liability insurance or if you do want insurance on the piece as well, something to consider. Activate grants are very competitive, especially for the summer. And doesn't mean your project is not good if you're not selected this time around, just something to keep in mind. Communication is key with any of these projects if you're selected. Like I said, we love to work with you and we understand stuff happens, but letting us know what's going on is always helpful. And be open to your design changing as you go through the process. With any kind of public activation, we expect that. And it's kind of the fun problem-solving aspect of working this way. And failure is sometimes part of the process, and that's okay too. A lot of these things have complications, like I said, with weather and whatnot, and we accept that and are very solution-based with our approach. So some tips for a good proposal. Really just follow the directions that are listed in the proposal or in the activation grant packet. If you don't necessarily have the experience for what you want to do, being able to demonstrate experience through other past projects that are maybe relatable or some things you followed through on and had success are still great ways to do that. And then I highly suggest investing time in creating a rendering of sorts that shows what the piece will look like to some degree and give the review committee some insight into the work itself. Keeping things organized and concise is always appreciated as well. So these are the requirements that you can find in the application, but please follow these. It's a lot of what we've already gone through. Sitemap can be pretty simple, but just an understanding of where you want to place the work. And keep in mind that if you are selected, we do pay half upfront and then half upon completion of the project. And so I'm going to open up for questions. And something that's coming to mind right now is the selection process is usually something I get asked. We do have an external review committee made up of arts professionals and community members that do an initial review process of all the applications and then make recommendations from there. And then the DGRI team takes those recommendations and determines how many projects we can fund and where they will go. Any other questions? Okay, do you have any advice if I've never done any public projects before? Well, first of all, we have a great opportunity because there are about 10 Activate grants up right now in downtown. I would suggest checking those out. I always like to look at how things are built, what materials people are using. And I just suggest, talking to artists that are working in a way that you're trying to work as well. People are usually really open to grabbing a coffee and sharing insights. And you can do a ton of research online too, about how things are built and made. All right, Erica, how many grants are awarded in total? So that really depends on what the amounts come in at. I would say for summer last year, I believe we awarded 8 grants. And then for winter, usually it's more about like 12. But it depends how much money people are asking for with each proposal. All right, what is the deadline to apply for a project? For this one, it is March 10th. And then, as I mentioned, the winter grants will open sometime late summer, early fall. And for the event grant that I mentioned, that one is a rolling application process. So you can apply for that anytime. Can you talk more about the location selection, specifically how Maddie approached the Tin Can building for their mural? Yes, so I suggest just spending some time downtown. The application packet does have a list of some suggested locations, but I find that just kind of wandering around and seeing what inspires you and what you feel like is a compelling location for a work is a great idea. And also having, as I mentioned, Maddie had, I think, 3 locations they were looking at and ended up on the final one, which, like I said, was extremely successful. But having a few things in mind, and I know that can be frustrating when proposing a mural that you want to be really specific to the piece, but thinking about how maybe the same concept could work in a few different places. So if one does fall through, you got to back up for it. And Maddie really just adapted their design slightly to fit the final building as well. Are there locations for indoor sculptures? Not particularly. We have had some success with like parking garages with glass. Some people activate with vinyl and then have some kind of sculptural elements inside so they're visible and lit up. So that would be a way to kind of have something that's indoor, outdoor. And there are a few other locations like that. It just needs to be visible at all times. But primarily outdoor is the way people normally go. Oh, great question. You guys help with installation and setup. For this grant program, we really expect you to take the lead on it, but I'm always here to help and offer feedback and advice on how the best way to do something might be. But we do expect you to take the lead on that. What would be ideal projects to fund? I think the examples I showed are pretty good. Something that's engaging, vibrant. We always love an interactive element if possible, because that's something we found that the public really responds to. But that's not necessary. Like I said, thinking about what the project looks like day and night is always fun. To have a lighting element on it, I think that definitely improves things. But yeah, there's our Instagram is a great place to go to look at past Activate grants as well. And then just around town. Cool. Any other questions? Doesn't look like it. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have something specific you'd like me to answer or any questions that come up as you're working through the application. And I'll look forward to seeing what you submit. Oh, here, I got one more question. What exactly does free to the public mean, and how would that work for an installation that would have a cost? For example, a project that displays art on the outside but has a cost to operate similar to a jukebox. That's a great question. So I have to think about this one. If you could shoot me an email on it, so I can get some more details, that would be great. But I think that makes sense to me, that you would be able to see and experience the artwork. I think if it was like a nominal cost, that might be okay. I really, just need to know more. So feel free to shoot me an email. Can you be from another city to apply for an event grant if you're planning on doing an event in Grand Rapids? Yes, you can be. You just need to probably be on site if it's an event, but yes, you can be from somewhere else to apply for an Activate grant. Oh, lost it. Oh, there we go. For event-related projects, is an art element required for a project to be approved? Not necessarily, but I think it helps to have something creative and fun. And once again, I'm not quite sure what the event is in itself. So maybe shoot me an email on this one too, and maybe I can provide some feedback about the specifics of it. All right. Well, it looks like we are going to wrap up here. Thank you for listening, and feel free to reach out if you have further questions after today. Have a good one.